Greetings. How are you? Can you
Ah,
hear me?
I can hear you. Not the best tonight. We had a talk today and didn't know that this would be what we would be talking about today.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm sitting here and I'm watching what is happening in Barbados, and I don't even know the word for it. We just, I don't know what to say. Like you, I'm lost for words. I didn't know that, we were going to get this news at the beginning of this show. And yet, as you read that article, which is also like a great place to start, we also can't give up. We can't throw our hands in the air. We can't say that, that we are not doing anything. And so I think what we are doing tonight, I'm hoping that, some family out there who needs this information, who needs the understanding, hopefully it can get them to get help, or get them closer to help for a loved one or somebody who may need it, because we can't give up, right? I mean, all the work that you do, all the work that people in the community who are not giving up do, it still counts for something. And so I think very much, that's where I just want to take it tonight. So without any further ado, what I want to do tonight is to talk a little bit about the social services system in Barbados, as what I see are some of the things that we need to think about and fix, even as we address this overarching problem that we have that is happening in Barbados. I accept that this would have to go along with other things, but this is the part of the puzzle that I know best. So, it is an important piece of the puzzle. And I've been listening to the conversation over the last couple of weeks. Like you said, we're a nation in mourning. And I've been listening to all that has been said around the unfortunate drowning, around a number of things. And what I want us to do as Barbadians is to make sure that we do not fall into the trap of blaming ourselves solely for where we are. I don't think blame is going to help. So, one of the things that I got here next to me is this book, Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. My
Hmm.
people need to start to read. This is a book by a doctor called Dr. DeGroy, and she looks at the impact of slavery on America.
Hmm.
And if you read this book and you think about some of what is happening in Black communities across the world, then you begin to understand that we shouldn't blame ourselves. This is the unfinished work from colonialism and the damage that has been done by colonialism. And within the Caribbean, we have a government, sets of governments that have replaced the white massa with a group of people I call the politourgeoisie. So they're not bourgeoisie because many of them come from the same communities as us. They went to the same schools as us, but they use that plantation system and they implant themselves in the system, and they uphold the system to continue to punish the rest of us. And that is exactly what is happening in Barbados. So you can add this to your list, the book list. Now, what I want to do tonight is I want to talk about and think about the families in Barbados who may have young people who need help and support. Where
Mm-hmm.
do these young people go? This is a part of the conversation that we started around the government industrial school, and it is a part of the conversation that we have not continued or that we still don't have answers for. So, the first thing I want to establish is that we have a problem in Barbados treating two children who have needs, whether they're developmental needs, trauma needs, mental health needs, mental wellness needs, and it happens. We know that after COVID, the entire mental health of the world changed. I'm not telling secrets here. We know this, right? So, where does a parent or a family go
Mm-hmm.
to get help for a child when that child needs help.
Yes.
But even if you can find that help before the child turns 16, where can a parent go to get help for a child between, let's say, 16 and 23? Because whatever we categorize them as, that age of 16 to 23 in Barbados, if we look at the deaths, if we look at the murders, if we look at everything, that 16 to 23 age group is one that we have to pay attention to. One of the things that has happened in Barbados, and I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't happen anywhere else, it also happens in Canada. At the age of between 16 and 18, there are tiers in the way that we classify people. So for the purpose of sex, a child has reached the age of consent in Barbados at 16. I think we all know that. But the age of majority in Barbados is still 18. So according to the Minors Act is the piece of legislation that governs what we do with children in Barbados. According to the Minors Act, Cap 215, a person is a child in Barbados until they reach the age of majority, and that age of majority is attained at 18. But what happens is that if you have a family in Barbados who needs support and care for a child, and they go to, let's say, the child care board, the police, the welfare, the probation department, they will be told, well, we can't do anything because this child is an adult. That is not true. That is not true. I just read to you the laws of Barbados, right? A child is a child in Barbados until they reach the age of 18. Now, Marcia, you remember one of the things that happened after the government industrial school? We removed wandering. We needed to remove wandering. It is an old colonial archaic law. If a person has a mental health issue, you don't strip them naked and put them in a cell and forget about them. That doesn't fix them. It doesn't help. Actually, it makes it worse. So we had to get rid of wandering. We then understood that we had to fill that space. So remember the Child Protection Bill? Anybody,
Yes.
the loyal opposition remembers the Child Protection Bill? It was dated January the 24th, 2023, right? And it said that the bill made provisions for the reform of the law on the care and protection of children, right? So we understood that we had children in Barbados who needed this care and protection. We further understand when we removed that wandering law, we could see where there was this gap. We weren't dealing with these children. Marcia, the children who are running around Barbados with guns, the children who are sitting under the trees, the children who are causing the issues in Barbados, they don't drop from the sky. They don't drop from the sky. They are part of our community. And I don't want us to believe that all of the parents don't try to help. I don't want us to believe that these are children that their communities, that their teachers have not tried to intervene with. But I want us to believe that getting help and support for a child who is given trouble in Barbados is next kin to impossible. I sit here and I say that without fear of contradiction, and especially when that child is between, like I said, 16 to 23. You go to the police tell you they don't know what to do. You go to the child care board will tell you it ain't them. You go to the welfare tell you it ain't them. You go to the probation department, they tell you it ain't them. It is very difficult to find the people who are going to help this family to deal with the situation. So, but we have this bill. You can tell me what happened to it because I don't know, but I have my copy of it. And I want to point people to some of the sections today. And maybe this is why nothing is happening with this bill, because we just give away land in Barbados. You know better than me. We give away down in whole town. We give away there on the outskirts of town. But you know what we don't have in Barbados yet? We do not have a halfway house for children who may be too much for their families to handle. Because again, let me be honest, it happens. There are some of them who are too much for the family. They need professional care and support. But we don't have a halfway house. The child care board in Barbados is turning children onto the street without proper mechanisms when they reach 16 and they age out of child care board homes. The government industrial school does the same thing. I talk without fear of contradiction. And some of these children, it is not because their circumstances have changed. Like I said, they're just aging out of the system. So the government itself, remember one of the things that I said about this child protection bill that I did not like is that while everybody else in Barbados can be punished for doing wrong to a child, the government cannot. So nobody can sue the government. Nobody can accuse the government of not caring for children properly, but the government can use this act to do it to the rest of us, right? Problematic. So there is no shelter. And what you have is that a lot of these children then become housing unstable, family unstable. And this is why this undercurrent that we have in Barbados, what we are now calling gang culture, is so alive and well, because the gang replaces the social services that are absent, the family that can manage, and then we end up with this environment where they become they are pulled into this undercurrent of society. Now, for the purpose of the Child Protection Bill, again, remember we said in the Minors Act, it is a person under 18. In the Child Protection Bill, it is also, child means a person who is under the age of 18. The government has a fiduciary responsibility to protect this age group, right? What is the purpose of the act? For what we are talking about tonight, I want to highlight a couple of the purposes, not all, but it's supposed to protect the welfare of a child. So if the child has needs that make it too difficult for the parent to handle, right? The state has a responsibility to the child to provide safe space, to provide care and protection for the child, to protect a child from abuse and neglect, and to ensure that the best interest of the child is given paramount consideration in all matters. I am going to ask the question, are our social services in Barbados doing that? Are they doing that? Or do we know of instances where people go into the welfare department and they are treated any kind of how? Do we know of instances where people go into the child care board and they're treated any kind of how? I mean, we talk about it when it is in the street. But when it is the people in our society with the responsibility, somehow we can't call a thing. We don't say it. I heard on this show the other day, we were talking about police officers, and it came out how much police officers in Barbados make. Now, welfare officers in Barbados and social workers operate on the Z16 to Z6 scale. That's how the civil service of Barbados is ranked. They're different scales, right? Z16, you start at the higher number is the lower scale, and you go up. The higher number then is the higher salary. So the average social worker and welfare officer in Barbados start making $3,401.66 a month of the taxpayers' money. In addition to that, they're classified as traveling officers, and that entitles them to at least $50,000 of an interest-free loan to buy a vehicle. So my contention, where I'm going with that is, Marcia, we should be expecting more of the social workers and the welfare officers in Barbados than we expect of the police. And why do I say that? I say that because by the time the police have to get involved, it is too late. The social workers and the welfare officers are the ones better positioned to help these families, to help these vulnerable children, to stop these cycles. Now, that has not been done. It has not been done. We have not been doing it, and now we are at the stage that we are at. And if you ask me what we need at this stage now, if it was something that I had to work my mind around, the first thing that I would want to do is a complete analysis of my ecosystem in terms of social services in Barbados. That's where I would start. Because if you're trying to fix a problem, you have to first be clear about what the problem is. Because this is a system that I have worked in for so many years, I know where some of the gaps are, but I would want to do a full analysis. So one of the things that I would look at, you have social workers in the welfare department, child care board, probation department, whatever the case may be. You have social workers at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I don't know if we have them at the polyclinics. Somebody would have to tell me that. I'm not sure about that. We have them at the psychiatric hospital, but do we have social workers at the police? Do we have social work? Because I was told the response when I said we don't, welfare services and childcare board services and them things that are shut down at 4:30, open back at 8:30, don't open on the weekend. I was told you can call through the police PBX and find a social worker. But does the police have social workers? Are you trying to tell me that if I want a food voucher on a Saturday, I have to stop the police in Barbados from running boat behind the men with the AK-47s and everything to set up for me to get a food voucher from a welfare officer?
You're serious about that?
I mean, that's why I was told that you're supposed to, that you can still get the social services, but you get them through the police. But the police department in Barbados does not have social workers, as far as I know, to say, well, we can keep a closer hand on this family. You know, there might be a child coming in. The child may have done a little something, but you can still pull it around. Yeah. Not even the juvenile liaison scheme. I don't know if they have social workers. I am asking. I am not asserting that they don't have. I am asking. And if they do have, this is the information that the public needs so that we can arrest this situation, right? It is easy to say, oh, well, the mothers ain't doing nothing, the fathers ain't doing nothing, da, da, da. Marcia, what are they going to do? Who do they deliver their children to? How are we making sure that where they deliver their children, we're going to get safe services? Let's call a thing a thing. I see one of your astute people saying the police don't have social workers. I'm not going to read the rest of that. But I am not talking about a police officer who has to leave his duty to be a social worker. You know, I'm talking about the post of social worker within the police force. Because what happens is when you were reading that article just now, you talked about the cracks we left unattended.
Yes.
Are what are causing the problem in Barbados. The fact that our police department does not have social workers is one of the cracks that we have left unattended. And these cracks are pulling communities, whole communities in, right? Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about is a child, what is classified as a child in need of care and protection. And again, the Child Protection Act sets it out. And children with mental health needs are one of the categories. Now, Marcia, that article that you read is so poignant. Because what we are not understanding, I am sure if you add up all the murders in Barbados between January 2024 and today, right? And you do an analysis of how many children have been affected. And then you ask yourself, what mechanism have we set up for those children to get trauma support? Somebody running through your neighborhood and you're hearing da, 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 and you're doing your homework. That is not something that you forget. And it may not be that you were born with a mental health need, but because of the trauma you experience, you now end up with a trauma-based mental health need. I'm an advocate. I am not a social worker. If I know these things, the people in our society who are making the 3,000s and the 5,000s and the 6,000s when the month come must know. We can't do the same thing in Barbados and expect a different result. The final thing that I want to talk about before, we have to move on. Well, two things. I want to say as well, if I'm doing that triage of our social services system in Barbados, attorneys at law are an important sector that we have to pay attention to with respect to family. Barbados is perhaps one of the only places in the world that I know that an attorney at law can set up shop and do any kind of law. So if a person come with a title deed today, they do that. If a person come with a rape case tomorrow, they do that. If a person come with a family matter the next day, they do that. There are specialties of law. And some of the tactics that you use in criminal law will not work in family law. You actually make the situation worse, because what family law is based on is mediation and mitigation, right? Criminal law is based on finding this little tweak, this technicality that you can get your client off, this, that. The two types of law are completely different. The reasons you do them, the way you approach the cases, completely different. So we need a cadre of well-trained family lawyers in Barbados with expertise in family instability if we are going to arrest this problem. Because some of the cases in Barbados become complex because they spend too long in the court system. And the attorneys, frankly, don't have the skills to be able to triage and to work as a part of a team to get the family the help it needs. These are the things that we need to address. When we talk about the parents should do something, how are the parents going to be better than the system itself? How are the parents going to be better? I have worked with several parents who have tried. It's not for the lack of trying, right? We talk about parents as if every parent has a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD. They don't. All some have is love for their children. And when something goes wrong, they understand that they need help. But again, ask the question tonight, where can they go to get it? So the attorneys, the final thing that I want to talk about, Marcia, I have operated in the civil society space in Barbados for 25 years. 25 years. I am not afraid or ashamed to say that the cases that I deal with now are far more complex than the ones that I dealt with in 2000 when I started. And the truth is, Marcia, we are past the point in Barbados where anybody should be able to walk off the road and say, I am a civil society person, I offering services for vulnerable people, and just get to set up. Marcia, we are past that. People need individuals that are willing to go through vulnerable sector checks, and they need people who are willing to do at least a basic training course to make sure that they're not doing harm. I am not casting aspersions on anybody's intentions. Of course, we all want good things. We want to help our fellow man. But at the end of the day, some of the skills that you need to be able to move these cases, to first of all, understand what you are seeing, to not add to the trauma, to be able to just know how the system works, read the law, understand the law. It needs people that are committed to making sure that they are trained and can really do what they need to do. And like I said, all don't need to be social workers. I'm not a social worker, but I'm definitely an advocate, and I upgrade my skills all the time. I make sure that I'm upgrading, doing this little course, doing that little training, because that is the responsibility that the work takes. Marcia, civil society in Barbados handles, and you know this because the loyal opposition is also now doing some of this work. Civil society for years now has been filling the gap that the government has left. But you know what is the problem with filling the gap that the government has left? Again, because the services in Barbados are so disjointed, what it does is that it doesn't leave us in the position to create sustained, seamless services. Right? So if I get, again, a case on a Friday night or a Saturday, I don't know what to do with it because I don't know how to contact the welfare. I don't know how to get a food voucher. I don't know how to do any of that. And nobody tells us. Back there in COVID, women's groups, all kinds of groups, church groups, were doing hampers and stuff like that for people.
Yes.
But you know, when they gave you the certificate for the car to say that you could move during the lockdown, the whole time I worked during that lockdown with women, girls, the court, food vouchers, everything, I was driving on the road without a sticker. Because when the government had the meeting with the stakeholders, civil society was not at the table. The other thing that I am going to say about civil society in Barbados is that civil society needs to stop operating in a vigilante way. We are asking the society to stop operating in a vigilante way, and yet still, when it serves us, we are also operating in a vigilante way. What do I mean by that? Marcia, there's not a piece of legislation in Barbados that sets up a shelter in Barbados. Any kind of shelter.
Repeat what you're saying. Explain that for me.
So
we literally have 5 minutes, but we have to pick up this conversation again. But explain.
So real quick, in 5 minutes, everything that has credence in Barbados has credence because of the law, right? So the Ministry of Education has credence because there's an Education Act. They operate under the Act. The Ministry of Health has credence because there's a Health Care Act. They operate under the Act. Shelters in Barbados are not governed by any legislation whatsoever. So if my family member goes into a shelter, there is no minimum guaranteed standard of care for my family member. So if my family member has a mental health need, right, and they go into a shelter and then they give trouble in the shelter, somebody could say, you see, you step back on the road because you giving too much trouble in here. And there is no law that I can go to and say, well, no, you can't do this because the law says that my relative is a protected person in Barbados and they're entitled to A, B, C, and D. Or if you want to put them out, you have to refer them to the psychiatric hospital. None of that exists. But there are civil society groups and individuals that we would know. We live in the same place. So we know. We don't have to call names. We know. They are doing this work, but they're not doing it properly. And what ends up happening then is that people get afraid of going to the system because they go and they have bad experiences. So it's okay to say these parents got to do something with these children. They got to stop these children from running up and down, creating friction. And again, I ask, where are they going to take them? Where are they going to take them? That is the responsibility of our government. I remember the Democratic Labour Party government had the Ministry of Family. Was it perfect? No. But it was a step in the right direction. Because what it recognized is that by the time the police are running around trying to figure out where the gunshots come from, this, that, it is too late. It's too late. You have to arrest the problem before it gets big and complex and complicated. So I know you said I had 5 minutes. I don't want to go over. But Marcia, as a person living in the diaspora, sitting down, watching and seeing what is happening in Barbados, I vex, I upset. I cycle through so many emotions. So many emotions. And I look at the marches and I look at all of that and I say, at least my people are thinking. At least my people are thinking. But we need to start to demand more of the individuals who are paid and still by every standard in Barbados paid well using the purse of the taxpayers, taking the responsibility, taking the pay without the responsibility. We need to do something about Barbados. We
Mhm.
need to do something. It hurts me. It really hurts me. And at the end of the day, anybody knows when it comes to Barbados, when it comes to poor people, when it comes to vulnerable people, they could call me morning, noon, night. I will never say no, and I will always do it for free. But at the end of the day, you have people in this government who think that they don't want to talk to nobody, they don't want to listen to nobody. They're always bombastic and they don't have the ideas.
Mhm.
And all of that is what is creating the problems that we have in Barbados. We got to do something different for a different result. Marsha,
Yeah.
Marcia, it is sad. It is sad. The madness has to stop. It has to stop.
Definitely. I'm listening to you, Marsha, while I wait on my other guests. Everybody's saying you need more time. And I want to say to you at the 9 o'clock hour, if you're still up, I don't know what time it is in Canada, and you can come back on and let the people ask you and talk to you. I'm listening to you, and I know that a lot of what you're saying, I mean, it's so real, it's so true. Because even with the same Silver Hill, I had a mom called me about three young boys, and I wouldn't say much more how they're,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just leave it
Mm-hmm.
at that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not in trouble at the moment, but she's worried
Mm-hmm.
because she saw that, somebody close to them got shot. And
Mm-hmm.
these boys are just boys going to school. The mother is worried, and she's called me. And believe you me, I call all about, and I cannot get anything anywhere to help that woman with those children. And then, so when I heard you say we're blaming the parents, I thought about that lady today as I was watching Jonathan's funeral. I was thinking about those three boys. And the
Yeah.
most I could do, Marsha, and yeah, I know how you feel about this, but you and I, we
You
share
pray
some.
for them.
We pray for them. Honestly, Marsha, I send it to a prayer group, but I'm still calling. I literally spoke to an ex-probation officer. I'm trying, but in the meantime, I say, "Oh God, Father, help them." Why it's 3 weeks now, and I can't get any help for these boys.
Yeah. One of the things that they did, so I hear people, they talk about the diaspora and this and that, and they talk about, oh, they fix the crime in New York and they fix the crime here and they fix the crime there. It is not only the police that fixed the crime in New York.
Mm.
There were community groups in New York that were holding healing circles at the level
Mm.
of the community. So you train, you don't need to be a trained social worker to run a healing circle, right? How are we training people in Barbados to help each other with the trauma of what is going on in Barbados
Right,
right now?
right now.